What if the foundation of global stability is cracking? A recent statement from a former president of the United States has ignited debates among analysts, signaling a shift in diplomatic dynamics. In a climate charged with uncertainty, Donald Trump remarked that we hear a lot of nonsense from the president of Russia. This incendiary comment does not merely challenge established diplomatic norms, it has also sparked intense discussions. Could this blunt rhetoric be an attempt to seize the information narrative? Or perhaps a daring political maneuver that risks escalating tension between major players? The implications are profound. If such provocative speech becomes routine, it could exacerbate political polarization and trigger shifts in strategic alliances, potentially integrating partners who are currently collaborating out of necessity. Even as diplomatic tensions rise, reports have surfaced from the Asia-Pacific region that suggest the onset of a new geopolitical phase. Unverified claims indicate that North Korea has launched a device branded as meteorological, but the fallout might be far more serious. Systems responsible for navigation and communication over extensive areas of Japan, South Korea, and the Philippines have reportedly gone haywire following this event. However, what's most alarming is the impact on Allied military bases where surveillance and control systems displayed abnormalities, with some fighter jets losing automatic control functions temporarily. Can you imagine the chaos as pilots scramble, confused and disoriented, unsure of their plane's capabilities? Amidst all this, the USS Theodore Roosevelt, an aircraft carrier known for its advanced technology, had no choice but to swiftly exit training exercises. The backdrop of this disturbing reality reveals an intensifying trend toward enhancing capabilities to disrupt navigation and counter space activities. What lies ahead? As nation-states grapple with unclear threats and alliances shift in unpredictable ways, will they adapt or falter? As systems of military coordination try to regain their footing, the question arises, is a new era of warfare dawning, where verbal clashes precede military actions? The intertwining of words and technology opens a Pandora's box of potential consequences that we are only beginning to grasp. The balance of power is at stake, and as the situation unfolds, countries will have to rethink their strategic approaches. Prepare for a world where diplomacy dances on a razor's edge, and the consequences of every statement can echo through the global stage, altering the fabric of international relations forever. In the previous segment, we explored the emerging risks associated with potential orbital systems that could disrupt navigation and communication. This raises critical questions about how nations will adapt their military strategies and diplomatic efforts in response to these new threats. As the stakes rise, states and military coalitions are now compelled to reassess their operational plans and contingency scenarios. They must prepare for a world where satellite communications and global navigation systems face degradation. This is not just theoretical, real-world incidents have already exposed vulnerabilities. Analysts are noting a troubling increase in disruptions and spoofing incidents, particularly in conflict-prone areas. The urgency to modernize alternative navigation systems is palpable. Investments in resilient technologies are on the rise. The ramifications of these incidents are profound. If one nation can be conclusively linked to widespread communication failures, the political fallout could be severe. Expect new sanctions and a breakdown of trust among superpowers. The technological implications of space-based electronic warfare diverge significantly from traditional land or air tactics. Such operations can affect vast regions and even civilian infrastructure, creating chaos far beyond military targets. The potential outcomes range from temporary navigation disruptions to intentional attacks on military communication systems. Addressing these threats requires not only countermeasures and political restrictions but also the establishment of international norms for behavior in space. Currently, the legal frameworks governing these issues are underdeveloped, leaving a gray area where risky technologies can flourish unchecked. Political tensions are escalating. Sharp rhetoric from Washington could combine dangerously with aggressive activities in space. This volatile mix increases the chances of misjudging intentions, while technological advancements provide immediate tools for action. How will the world's leaders respond in this fraught environment, where every word and action could tip the scales toward conflict. As reports emerge of increased military maneuvers and the use of advanced technologies, the question looms, are we on the brink of a new kind of warfare that could redefine global power dynamics? The tension is palpable. The world holds its breath, waiting for the next move. The repercussions of the recent incident unfolded almost immediately. What once seemed like an unshakable system of global deterrence began to crumble. The Philippines took the first bold step, unexpectedly canceling their procurement of American missile defense systems. This decision reverberated through political offices and military headquarters, signaling a rapid decline in trust toward the security assurances traditionally associated with the United States. In a dramatic turn of events, Japan emerged as a key player. Recognizing the critical vulnerabilities of their existing systems, Tokyo hastily initiated a national program to develop its own satellite navigation network. For a nation whose security has been intricately linked to American alliances for decades, this move was monumental, heralding the dawn of a new era of regional autonomy. Meanwhile, South Korea urgently sought assistance from Israel, submitting official requests for electronic warfare technology and backup radar systems. These actions reflected a desperate response to the newly exposed weaknesses in their national security framework. The situation starkly illustrated that even the most technologically advanced countries can find themselves defenseless against this new type of threat. As these developments unfolded, the North Atlantic Treaty Organization felt a significant blow to its authority. Military analysts in Europe and the United States openly acknowledged that an orbital attack had been a rude awakening for the entire alliance. Seizing the opportunity, China strengthened its position amidst the chaos. Leading state media in Beijing broadcast a clear message: America is gone, we remain. This straightforward proclamation effectively marked the end of an era of American dominance in the region and signaled a shift toward a new center of power. Meanwhile, the Quan satellite continued its silent journey through orbit, transforming into a symbol of the emerging age of space confrontation. What was once seen merely as a hypothetical battleground for future wars had now evolved into a full-fledged arena where the fates of nations and the balance of global alliances were determined. Insiders reported a grim atmosphere in the Pentagon, with generals and analysts expressing concern with a chilling phrase, "We lost the first battle of the new war and didn't even realize when it happened." In this new reality, the stakes are higher than ever. How will nations adapt to this shifting power dynamic? Can the old guard maintain its influence amid rising challengers? The answers to these questions will shape the future of international relations, as the world stands on the brink of a new geopolitical landscape. In the previous part, the world of global security was transformed as advancements in technology began to reveal vulnerabilities in long-established systems. Insiders from the Pentagon voiced their concerns, declaring, "We lost the first battle of the new war, and we didn't even realize when it happened." Now, that sentiment reverberates through military offices and think tanks, signaling the fading relevance of outdated military doctrines. A new era is unfolding before our eyes. The outcomes of global conflicts are no longer determined solely by artillery barrages or aircraft carrier fleets. Instead, they're influenced by invisible impulses emanating from orbit. The once quiet expanse of space has turned into a battleground, where mastery over information and energy flows defines the victor. Welcome to this new reality, where state security hinges on adaptability and technological breakthroughs. Each nation is compelled to reassess its strategies, as the traditional guarantees of stability crumble faster than politicians can utter the word security. This rapid evolution in geopolitical dynamics leaves us with a jarring question. Are we truly prepared for the consequences of this cosmic confrontation, and what will it mean for the balance of power worldwide? The stakes have never been higher, and the game has just begun. Could the intense words from Washington and rising tensions in space spark a disaster? As political leaders ignite verbal clashes, the potential for disastrous misunderstandings looms larger than ever. Airlines and military coalitions must scramble to adapt their strategies, as old alliances buckle under a new reality. With the ongoing uncertainty shifting the balance of power, the need for diplomacy becomes critical. However, fragile trust among nations stifles cooperative solutions, making the prospect of joint inspections and transparency in space activities seem like a distant dream. The moment the Quanmen satellite took to the skies, chaos erupted in the South China Sea. Reports of widespread failures in navigation systems flooded in, indicating an ominous escalation. Imagine the surreal scene: F-35 fighter jets, once revered as pinnacles of aviation technology, suddenly find themselves blind and deaf to communications. Their controls freeze, leaving fleets of equipment incapacitated, an entire strike group rendered useless in moments. As chaos ensues, commands echo across the deck. Evacuate the area. The USS Theodore Roosevelt hastily pulls away from the Philippine coast, a strategic retreat into safer waters. Simultaneously, NATO exercises are abruptly cancelled, leaving military experts scratching their heads. Meanwhile, China capitalizes on the confusion. Just one day later, Beijing launches extensive military maneuvers near Taiwan, showcasing heavy bombers and ballistic missile drills, their intentions unambiguously aggressive. Could this display of force, executed with ruthless precision, provoke a significant counter-response from NATO? In a world where misunderstandings could lead to war, the stakes are higher than ever. The presence of formidable weapons paired with fragile diplomatic tensions could ignite a conflict neither side truly desires, a precarious dance on the edge of disaster. As lines blur and trust dwindles, can any party afford to make the wrong move? In an extraordinary turn of events, key military bases in Japan, South Korea, and the Philippines experienced significant abnormalities in their surveillance and management systems. Some combat aircraft even lost essential automated control functions, raising alarm bells among defense analysts. The unanticipated disturbances forced nations and military coalitions to rethink their operational plans and establish backup scenarios in light of the degradation of satellite communications and global navigation capabilities. As wind whispered of chaos in the Pacific, the USS Theodore Roosevelt had to make a hasty retreat from its training grounds. This unsettling event coincided with a noticeable growth in nations developing technologies to suppress navigation and enhance anti-space capabilities. Documents surfaced discussing the Manson 6 apparatus and its launch vehicle, the H-6, from the Sohai platform. This highlighted escalating interest in space technologies, suggesting a concerning shift in global military dynamics. Now, let's dive into critical aspects of this incident. Electronic warfare, particularly in space, is about deploying hardware and radio signals to disrupt navigation and communication signals. Techniques can include active jamming and spoofing, potentially leading to broad, systemic effects. However, deploying such advanced systems faces hurdles, technical limitations, legal risks, and exorbitant costs. Reports indicate not only an urgent need for enhanced navigation backup systems but also growing investments in space and counterspace technology. Analysts emphasize that the mere discussion of orbital suppression capabilities alters the landscape of risk. Countries will likely need to adapt rapidly, modernizing defenses against the evolving technological threats. Amid these developments, will nations rise to the challenge or falter under pressure? What if these new technologies begin to disrupt not just military strategies but also the very fabric of international relations? Evidence points towards a rapid escalation in both defense upgrades and diplomatic tensions. The stakes are rising, and the question looms: how will global power dynamics shift in the shadow of these emerging threats? As tensions simmer, the world watches, ready for the next twist in this unfolding geopolitical saga. The unsettling winds of change were stirring, as the delicate balance of global security began to falter. Conflicts cropped up in previously stable regions, raising eyebrows and sparking urgent discussions among analysts. In the eye of this storm was a bold statement made by a former U.S. president. His words slashed through the air, declaring, "We hear nonsense from the Russian president." This explosive remark shattered diplomatic norms and launched a tidal wave of commentary and reaction. Was this a mere political maneuver designed to seize the narrative, or a reckless provocation that could ignite a larger conflict? As fierce debates unfolded, it became clear the implications of such rhetoric could tilt the scales of international alliances. In tandem with this inflammatory discourse, unconfirmed reports emerged from the Asia-Pacific region, suggesting North Korea had launched a satellite. This news, initially dismissed as a weather satellite, soon spiraled into something far more sinister. There were alarming outages reported in navigation and communication systems over vast swathes of Japan, South Korea, and the Philippines. Military bases began experiencing strange anomalies. Several fighter planes lost crucial automated functions, rendering them vulnerable. As tensions escalated, whispers of the USS Theodore Roosevelt being forced to abandon drills spread like wildfire. Concurrently, hints of a sinister trend surfaced: advancements in electronic warfare capabilities, especially aimed at suppressing navigation. Some nations were noticeably intensifying their defenses against such threats. However, the practical implementation of these technologies remained shrouded in challenges, from high costs to legal risks. The raw data pointed ominously to a clandestine project, referred to as Manson 6, utilizing the E-6 rocket from Sohi. Yet, amidst this hushed reverie, definitive public confirmations remained elusive. What could be deduced from the fragmented and at times contradictory information being presented? First and foremost, the very notion of deploying orbital methods for navigation and communication suppression was a game-changer. Military coalitions would have to urgently reassess operational plans, backup strategies, and algorithmic responses to ensure functionality amid the degradation of satellite connections and global positioning systems. Moreover, this uncertainty would spur an urgent push for improving backup navigation systems, enhancing resilience against disruptions, and funneling investments into autonomous control systems. How far would nations go, and what depths of resourcefulness would they tap, to preserve their security? As the echoes of prior misunderstandings lingered, the global community stood on the precipice of conflict, held captive by the fear of misjudgment and the urgency of technological innovation. The unforeseen consequences of this moment could very well reshape alliances and redraw the power dynamics across continents. Would the world witness a renaissance of cooperative norms in the face of these complex challenges, or would it descend into chaos? The clock was ticking, and the stakes had never been higher. Intense rhetoric from political figures in Washington, combined with escalating tensions in space, creates a potentially dangerous brew. The risk of misjudging intentions increases dramatically as nations grapple with the rapid, evolving landscape. In the face of shifting power dynamics, the call for diplomacy grows louder, yet a lack of trust makes collaborative efforts seem nearly impossible. The dream of transparency and joint inspections in the vastness of space feels increasingly out of reach. Just as the Quanmen satellite ascended into the atmosphere, mayhem erupted in the South China Sea. Navigation systems went haywire, causing alarm bells to ring across military corridors worldwide. Picture the alarming spectacle: F-35 fighter jets, once the pride of aviation engineering, suddenly rendered operationally mute. Critical controls became unresponsive, paralyzing an entire strike group in mere moments. Commands blared through the chaos: "Get the fleet out now." The USS Theodore Roosevelt swiftly changed course, retreating from the Philippine coastline into safer waters. NATO exercises were abruptly halted, leading to confusion among military strategists. Meanwhile, China seized the opportunity to flex its military might. Within 24 hours, Beijing commenced large-scale maneuvers near Taiwan, showcasing its heavy bombers and executing missile launches with chilling precision. Could this calculated show of strength provoke a substantial reaction from NATO? In an era where every misapprehension bears the potential for war, the stakes couldn't be higher. The combination of advanced weaponry and tenuous diplomatic relations teeters the world on the brink of chaos, a fraught ballet of tension that could spiral out of control. With trust deteriorating and lines between ally and adversary blurring, who can afford to misstep? The atmosphere has reached a fever pitch. With one bold move, China has unleashed 6 Dongfeng ballistic missiles aimed at a temporary supply base, once used by American forces. What was once a steadfast symbol of security, an American military presence, now lies shattered. The remnants of this base, stripped of life but not importance, were obliterated. The message couldn't be clearer: if you linger, you risk annihilation. This act sent shockwaves through Washington, instigating a silence from the White House and the Pentagon, invoking whispers of chaos instead of clarity. Tension gripped Allied capitals, especially Tokyo, where military leaders held urgent discussions behind closed doors. Alarm bells rang as English-speaking media were subtly instructed to downplay the incident. Avoiding criticism and potential escalation became the priority. Meanwhile, General Dan Kane, head of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, initiated a direct dialogue with General Valery Gerasimov of the Russian Armed Forces, seeking intervention in Pyongyang's newfound aggression towards orbital systems, a perplexing enigma for U.S. strategists. Yet, Moscow remained ominously quiet, leaving experts to ponder: could North Korea become a vital force for Moscow in the global standoff? With repercussions surfacing almost immediately, the global stability that had endured for decades appeared increasingly fragile. Then came a pivotal moment. Philippine authorities abruptly canceled their purchase of American missile defense systems, a symbolic step that distinctly signaled a deteriorating trust in U.S. assurances. Can the apparent unraveling of established alliances symbolize the dawn of a new era in geopolitical gambits? As the stakes rise and the tension boils over, who will dare to make the first move? Flashbacks of the unforgiving silence that followed the missile launch permeated the chambers of power. The anxious buzz of strategy meetings vibrated in the air, handshakes that felt more like farewells exchanged amongst the allies, while the lingering scent of fear wafted. They all wondered where this path would ultimately lead them. As shadows deepened, alliances shifted. Will history remember this moment as a mere ripple or the start of a tidal wave?